Hello, in this video we're going to look at creating a new room template from scratch. Um, as I have an empty scene here with just our player prefab, which is from the GameSmith Prefabs player folder, which is just a simple first-person controller that we use just to jump into the scene and check it. Not necessary to create the structure, but it's handy to have. I'll create an empty object to create our builder, and to the builder I'll just zero it and add the floor plan room builder script. I'll just uncheck a couple of default settings to allow us flexibility. And as you can see here, we need a room template and a floor plan template. Um, we can just pull these directly from the example ones, but let's see if we go up to Tools, GameSmith Floor Plan Editor. It's quite handy to have this. I'll just dock that alongside our existing inspector. Um, and I'll editor config. I'll use the default one, so we can, if we want to, we can change colors. Floor plan, we can either create a new one from scratch or we can use an existing one. There's a few templates. I'll use the square, which is just simply a square main wall only, which is very useful just for testing and especially for creating the room templates. It's quite easy to do just on the square with exactly what the front wall, the back wall, right wall, left walls are. So we'll just close that. We'll send that to the builder. We can drag it in here directly as well. No problem with that. And room template. So to create a new room template, and see there are quite a few templates already existing in the examples, but we can go to Assets, Create, GameSmith, and create a new room template from here. Um, so I'll call this demo room template, for example. And I'll create a new inspector tab so we can have the builder object locked. And we can temporarily lock in our demo room template as well while we're working on it. So we've got three tabs there. We've got our floor plan editor, our builder object, and our current room template, the one we're working with. At the moment, you see there are no prefabs assigned. Although it looks quite daunting, the list, there's a long list of prefabs we can have. Um, one of the most important settings, I suppose, are the tile dimensions. All the current ones that are included with the asset are 5 by 5, and the pivot point is first corner. That is the pivot. If we look at any of these walls, if I go to castle, look at walls and just pull one out, focus in, we'll see that the pivot point is actually on what we call the first corner. That's the bottom left. There are some assets, for example, most of the Cinti ones, that you'll find that the pivot point is over here. For example, if I look at a polygon dungeon, for example, um, environments, walls, pull in one of the walls. We'll see that the pivot point is over on the other side. So we call that second corner. So, but on this one, because it's first, all the tiles are going to be using template ones, it'll be first corner. So there's various options: there's first corner, second corner, or center. So if your tiles have a pivot point in the center, you can use center. It's just so adjusting for initial placement. Um, so going back to our demo room template, let's have a look at floors. I'll just add one in here. Back to our prefabs folder. So prefabs, castle, and you can see floors. See, we have various floor tiles there. So let's just pull one in. use castle 1, give the probability of 100, scale of 1 on all axes. We'll leave level range 0 to 0, which is the default. This means it can appear on any level. Let's go back to Inspector. We'll disable wall decorations, floor decorations. For now, as you see, we have no building name and no building parent, which is the transform it will create. It will create these when we click on build, but we can add in a name as well. And it will create the parent when we go build room, when we assign the room template to it. So we still haven't assigned the room template, so nothing's happening at the moment. So if we look back to our template, which I think we saved actually in here, we'll assign that to the builder and build room. We should see the floor now appear and creating that structure as defined in the floor plan in here. We could have more than one tile. We could have as many tiles as we want. We can keep adding more and probability. For example, we could have we could add in another second tile. Instead of castle 1, we could have floor castle 2. And now we should see that it's using either tile 1 or tile 2, roughly 50-50, because they're both set the same probability. Each one of these could have different floor decorations, and we can have as many as we want. If I set that back to 0 probability, it will then only use the first one. So 0 probability will never be used. If we set it to 0 on both, then we would get nothing at all. So it's always important to have at least one on probability 100. If that was on 50, we'd still get a complete floor, because it, as long as it's greater than 0, it'll use the whatever is there as the default. So if it doesn't find one, it'll default to the current one, as long as it's greater than 0 probability. But it's always recommended to have at least one in each section, one prefab that has 100% probability and on level range 0 to 0. So we don't need the second element, so we can remove that for the moment. So we have our floors. Let's have a look at our walls. So exactly the same way, we can assign a wall. Castable 1, you can see that these are numbered, so they create sets. For example, set 1, 2, 3, right up to 8. There's 8 different sets which go together, or can be mixed and matched. But initially, they match. So if I use castable 1, I know that's going to go with the floor. Don't forget to set the scale to 1. Our current height is 1, our floor frequency is 1, so that should then build level 1 high. Got back to 0. Alright, the floor's not appearing. So we have our floor and our walls, 1 high. Let's add the ceiling prefab. We have ceilings. Once again, make sure that has a probability of 100. Scale 1 on all axes. And now we have a ceiling. So with those three basics prefabs, that's floor, walls, and ceiling, we can have our room. We can change the height, make that say 3 high. We built high. We have a floor frequency of 1, so we expect to see 3 floors in there with 3 floors, 3 ceilings. And see, we have our floor frequency. If that was 0, for example, that would mean 1 ground floor only. So we just have one big room of 3 tiles high. We could change that to 2. It would be the same actually having it as 3. But if we change it to 2, we'd have the first room would be 2, and the second room would be only 1 because it's only 3 high. If we change the height to say 6 and leave it as 2, we expect to see 3 floors of 2 high, 1, 2, 3. So changing the height and the floor frequency, we set that to 1. We expect to see 6 floors, each one tile high, as we can see here. So just setting that back to 1 and 1. So we don't need to have ceilings. If we want to do top-down buildings, we can always have the rooms with no ceilings. Also, for example, if you're using double-sided floors, you don't actually need ceilings. You can disable ceilings, just use floors, and have a floor created at the top. Generally speaking, and you see there's a slight floor gap there. That's why we've got a gap. If we make that floor gap, if you're not using both tiles, you don't really need the floor gap. You can leave it as default 0. If you're using floors and ceilings to have different textures, let's put ceilings back on again, and then you'll want to make the floor gap. That is the gap between the floors and the ceilings, otherwise they'll both occupy the same space. So depending on the thickness of your tiles, you can set that accordingly. So we see ceiling above and floor below. And we could probably, in this case, if we're using ceilings, depending on requirements, you could uncheck the floor at top. So that's actually a ceiling texture, which is double-sided. But if you're using double-sided, there's no need to have the floor and the ceiling. You simply disable the ceilings and set the floors to be the top. So at the moment we have no doors, no windows. So let's look at the doors first. The doors are set in the floor plan editor on a segment basis. So if you look at, if we just open this grid, I've got main wall as the current segment type, label selection. So if I enable it, I can actually set how many doors I want per segment. So if I say on this side, well, let's just say we just want 1 for the moment. Close grid and build again. At the moment we see nothing happening, and that's because we don't have a door prefab. It doesn't know what to use as a door. So let's create a door tile. We go back to castle. If you go to doors, let's just use castle door 1 for the moment. Make sure it's a probability of 100 for the first one, and make sure the scale is 1 on all axes, otherwise you won't see it. And we'll see our door now appear. By default, always appears in the center of the segment. If we have more than one door, we can then set if it's centered or evenly spaced. For example, if I go back to the grid editor, I've set that to be, say, 3. Rebuild. We can see now that we have 3 that are centered. You could have that evenly spaced as well, the space across the whole length of the segment, rather than bunched up in the middle, which is the difference. We could also have doors on the other walls, or the other segments. So if we go into the floor plan editor, select our left wall, for example, so that's 2. You see now we have 2 doors evenly spaced here as well, but we could have them both centered. It'll center it as well as it can, depending on the number of segments. There's not always an even number, so or an odd number, so it can't always center it the best it can. If we want to have doors at certain positions, then what we can do, we can go in and we can subdivide um, by segments to get the door to be at the segment where we need it. But we'll look at that in more detail when we look at doors and overriding doors in a separate video. At the moment, we have no windows, so no matter how high, let's say, build that 3 high, we have no windows at all. So there's various different ways of getting windows in here. The easiest, simplest way is to add a wall tile that has a window in it. So if we add another, make that 2, and do element 1 instead of a wall, we add in a window. Say castle window. Let's use the slit style to have a probability. So it's the same probability, 100, 100, and the same level range. It'll be evenly based whether it chooses one or the other. So if we now go to build room, we'll see that it's using the wall tile with window in to create the window sections. We can reduce the bottom probability to get more or less. And randomly place those, say, depending on the probabilities that we input. If we only wanted the windows to appear on a certain level, we can set that as well. Say if we only wanted it on the first floor, which should be 1 to 1, appear. And because the probability is 50, it's still going to use that same probability of 50%. If we wanted it to appear on all floor ones, if we make that 100, it means that that would always be the dominant one because it's a different level range from 0, 0. So this one would always be used at this level because there is no other one at that level. So we see now that that tile is being used on level 1 consistently. And let's say we can change that to go up to level 2 or any other level that we wish. If we set it to be 0, because of the existing one on 0, this one will be shared on the first level. So you should see some will be appearing on level 0. You see down here as well. So that's one way of putting windows in. We can have different windows on different levels or have them randomly created. So the first method to put in windows is using the wall tiles. There's a second way. We're using the floor plan, which we'll have a look at in the next video.